This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Fulis.
And we are here with episode 11, and today we are talking about St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah, it was a WWF one-off pay-per-view back in 1999. It was on exactly Valentine's Day. So we figured Valentine's Day being yesterday that it kind of made sense to cover that themed pay-per-view for this week.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting enough, this was technically an In-Your-House pay-per-view, and it would be the last ever In-Your-House pay-per-view. In-Your-House was kind of a series of pay-per-view events. They were a little bit shorter in length, but they were also cheaper. So, like, you can get your average fan didn't have to spend, $30, $40, $50. They could spend $20.
Yeah, it was kind of like a glorified Raw, really. Mm-hmm. It was like a 2-hour show, and it costed a little bit less than a regular pay-per-view, like you said. And then actually, the beginning of that, they were giving away houses.
Yes, in the beginning.
That was their gimmick of, well, if you buy it and you watch it, you have a chance to enter and be, called on live pay-per-view to win a house, which I don't think flies nowadays.
No, I don't think so.
They don't give much away nowadays. They had the McMahon Millions for a little while where he almost died at the end. All that stuff. Obviously, they're always going to have certain giveaways. But before we get into the pay-per-view, did you notice what they were giving away if you sent your pay-per-view bill in?
Yeah, you got a magnet.
Yeah. And it says, so they have this commemorative St. Valentine's Day Massacre magnet. You send a copy of your cable bill in showing that you bought the pay-per-view, and 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep.
It seems like it's way more effort than it's worth.
I know.
Yeah, they put that on the show. That was one of their advertising things between matches. I'm like, wow. A magnet. Simpler times.
I wonder if we can find one of those on eBay somewhere.
Maybe. They might still be kicking around. I mean, the 12 people that probably bought them.
Yeah, I know.
That took the steps to get them. But yeah, can you imagine, though, going getting an envelope, making a copy, buying stamp, and mailing it to get a magnet back in the mail like 8 weeks later.
And nowadays, most people don't even get a paper copy of their cable bill.
Yeah, paperless, yep. And then, you get. But yeah, I thought that was ironic that we were talking about, giveaways and stuff, and that was what they had actually on that pay-per-view.
Sure, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into it. There was a couple, there's one dark match and a couple matches on Heat before the actual pay-per-view. Your dark match was Too Much. This is Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor
before they were Too Cool with Grandmaster Sexay and Scotty Too Hottie, but same guys. Brian Christopher recently passed away, and Scott Taylor's still around. Scotty Too Hottie.
He just made an appearance on an NXT show not too long ago. I believe so.
Yeah, he still looks in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
for a guy that's got to be in his early 50s. If I had to guess, without looking, I'd say he's probably somewhere around 50, anyways.
I would think so. And so they would get a victory over the Hardy Boys here, Jeff and Matt Hardy.
Yeah, let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
Before they were Too Cool, they were Too Much, and they beat the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
So it's weird to see that. And we don't know a time on that because it was a dark match. So we don't know how long the match went. But I would think it probably was a pretty good match.
I would think so. It's a good way. That's a good dark match. Way to get the crowd going before the pay-per-view goes.
You would have thought they would have put that on Heat.
Yeah.
Because we'll get into it, but the matches they had on Heat, the 2 matches totaled 3 minutes.
Yeah, they weren't very long at all. You had the first Heat match. You had Viscera with Midian defeating Test with the Big Boss Man by disqualification. That only went 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Before we go much further on that, there's only one of these guys that's still alive, right? Midian's still alive, right? Or no?
Yeah, Midian's still alive.
Dennis Knight's the only guy still alive. Everybody in that match has passed away.
Yeah, there's a couple of people in this match that have passed away, that were on this pay-per-view that passed away, which is kind of...
it was 21 years ago.
21 years ago.
That's insane. The Big Boss Man passed away. Tess has passed away, and Viscera, known as Mabel, he also passed away. So it's definitely kind of brings you back to reality almost.
Mm-hmm.
I know wrestling is, people watch it, it's entertainment, and it's not real or I'm not going to say fake because a lot of people get a hair across their behind if you say fake. So understandably so, but you still have to look good. So a lot of these guys that do pass away have taken, abused their body. They've taken, steroids and different, pain medication. They've abused that, and unfortunately, they end up losing their lives.
Yeah, in Viscera's case, weight was a big issue.
Yep.
This was Viscera, the first pay-per-view for Viscera. This is coming off the heels of Royal Rumble 1999, which we actually just covered a couple weeks ago here. So in that pay-per-view, we saw he was still Mabel.
Yes. And
got abducted by the Undertaker. Undertaker named him Viscera.
Yeah, he had the Ministry of Darkness at that time, which consisted of the Brood, the APA, before they were the APA. They were just the Acolytes at that time. And then, Midian and Viscera. It was a different time back then.
It's kind of my favorite era of wrestling. The Attitude Era, definitely.
Yeah, I think from anywhere from, 96, 97 to early 2000s was like the best era, I think, for wrestling, because they can get away with a lot of stuff that they can't,
You can't.
Even back then they had the do it and then ask for forgiveness afterwards.
Yeah.
They would just do it and hope the censors and the stations didn't care, which is what was one of the best promos when DX went, and actually read the letter that they got sent to them about what they can and can't say on TV, and they went and read it, and USA thought it was hilarious. Mm-hmm. So, it was a different time, and it was definitely an entertaining time. I mean, it didn't hurt that I was in my childhood fandom at that point, too.
I was 9 years old when this pay-per-view aired. Actually, about 9.
Yeah.
All right, the next match on Heat, we had Billy Gunn with Triple H and X-Pac and DX versus Tiger Ali Singh. That match went about 40 seconds and ended in a no contest.
Full disclaimer, we did not watch this Heat episode,
No.
So we don't really know what happened. We were actually talking about it ahead of time. We both had watched the pay-per-view this week, but we looked at it and we saw 40 seconds. We're like, wow, what happened?
Yeah. But Tiger Ali Singh and Nana, we don't talk about too much now.
No, he's long forgotten. Put it that way.
All right, so we get to the actual show now. In our first match, we had Goldust getting a win over Blue Dust, who is the blue meaning here. This match went about 3 minutes long. Storyline here is Goldust stole head, then Blue Dust from Al Snow, then Blue Dust stole
mind
back.
you, it's a mannequin head.
A mannequin head.
For those of you that don't realize what head is, it's not a sexual innuendo.
No.
I mean, it can be used that way, but that's not what we're talking about. Al Snow used to carry around a mannequin head.
So I thought this match, it was, as if you listen to the Bruce Pritchard podcast, that's what you would call a lot of gaga going on in this match.
The Blue Meanie comes out in pretty much like a baby's onesie.
Yeah,
that's blue with his face painted blue like Goldust. He comes out with the same entrance music, and he comes out as Blue Dust. And Tim and I were just talking right before we went on, started recording, that it felt like this match went longer than 3 minutes.
It did.
I mean, it wasn't a terrible match.
No.
But yeah, it was definitely a lot of, humor and gaga, and there wasn't a whole ton of wrestling in it. And for the Blue Manny's credit, he wasn't known for being a wrestler.
Yeah, he was an ECW guy.
Yeah, he was kind of a hardcore kind of stuntman type wrestler. Yeah. But it wasn't terrible.
No, it was what it was. You're not going. This is supposed to be a technical wrestling match.
And it was opening the show, so you wanted to open it light. Get the fans kind of going for what they were going to see. Kind of you didn't want to burn one of your better matches to start the show in this card, because really there's some good names on this card, but really once we get into it. Once you get past the next couple of matches, there was 4 or 5 pretty good matches on this card.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a couple good. We'll get into it as well. Like some of the finishes, I thought were pretty interesting too. Goldust, though, it looked like he kind of struggled with that curtain call at the end to win the match. He kind of barely got him up there.
I think that Dustin Rhodes is in the best shape of his life right now.
I think he's having his best matches.
He looked pudgy and out of shape, and that was 21 years ago. So he's 50 now, and he looks in great shape now compared to, you look back at him now and you're like, wow, he was a big guy, but he wasn't. You could tell how much in shape he is now versus how he was then.
Back then, absolutely. Our next match here is Bob Holly getting a win over Al Snow with head. This match,
again, the mannequin head.
Mannequin head. This match went about 10 minutes. This was for the vacant hardcore championship.
Road Dogg actually held that going into it, but he was hurt. He was injured, so he had to give it up. And that was they were the 2 number 1 contenders for the match for the championship.
Again, a lot of gaga going on in this match as well. Not going to be a technical wrestling match, being a hardcore match.
Right.
They battled throughout the arena. They actually ended up in the Mississippi River.
Yeah, they were in Nashville at the Pyramid in Nashville. And it was funny because they were talking about the river before they even went outside. So, you kind of knew. I was like, oh, they're going to go by the river. They might end up in the river. Here we go. Yeah. And it's notable because the night before, too, they had a special Saturday night edition of Raw.
Yeah.
So Jerry the King Lawler couldn't talk from, day one.
I know.
His voice was shot from the beginning of the pay-per-view. But, yeah, it was you think of the 24/7 championship now. It's kind of the same thing, except they don't do as much hardcore stuff. But it's the same kind of thing. You can pin them anywhere. You can submit them anywhere. It's pinfall. Anything goes. It's the same concept as a 24/7, except back then the hardcore title, they did some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah,
smashing stuff. Bob Holly was breaking 2x4s over Al Snow's back in that match.
I don't know if they got a permit for this, but they took a no parking sign that was on the street and like just hit him with it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
When next to a cop car, there was a cop car right there.
Yeah.
And
then Jerry the King Lawler was like, that cop car was parked in a no parking zone.
I know.
But yeah, it was an interesting match to say the least.
Yes. Bob Holly getting the win. He wrapped Al Snow with some chain link fence. And pinned him outside.
And then it's funny too because they just have this 10-minute match and then they have to go back into the arena.
Yeah, they have
and Bob Holly's hauling ass. Like running back in, and it's like, dude, you just had a match. Like, at least play it up like you got hurt a little.
I know.
Well, he's just running, he's hauling. It's like, all right, well.
But I thought, pretty good hardcore match.
Yeah, I mean, it was back then. It was what you expected it to be. A lot of spots with things you like trash can, not just trash cans, but like rubber trash cans getting hucked at people, and it was a nice match.
All right, then moving on here, our next match here, you had the Big Boss Man getting a victory over Midian. This match went just over 6 minutes. This match kind of was just there for me. The storyline here is you have the corporation represented by Big Boss Man against the Ministry of Darkness against Midian. But yeah, this match was kind of there for me. It wasn't like that great of a match in my opinion.
No, I think it was filler.
Yeah,
it was kind of a let me up match from the hardcore match, I think. And it was funny that Midian came to the ring with that eyeball in a jar.
Yeah.
So it was definitely kind of more gaga in that, that he was. But I mean, even to know, Midian being one of the Godwins, so he had been around in the company for a while, and he was always a decent performer. They just never really found a good gimmick for him.
No.
They just never could find. He wasn't all that charismatic, so that didn't help. It kind of hurt him. But wrestling-wise, he was a pretty good wrestler.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was there. Even Big Boss Man, I think, for a guy his size, back then, he did a lot of things that were pretty impressive, too, for a bigger guy. And, I mean, this is even back when he had the program with the Mountie, and he left and went to WCW and then came back. Mm-hmm. He's always been, to me, a little bit overlooked for what he could do, too. Yeah,
absolutely. Finish here, just a sidewalk slam getting the victory, which I don't think you would even come close to a finish like that today.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't even the traditional sidewalk slam either. It was more like the abyss, like black hole slam, type upright, not the actual sidewalk slam where you scoop a guy up and sit down with him. But yeah, it was. You think of the finishes from back then. I mean, now you have people kicking out of multiple. That's one of the things. Sidebar. One of the things that's wrong with wrestling today is that they kick out of too many finishing moves. A finishing move should be a finishing move. Yeah. You can kick out of it here and there. Like you shouldn't kick out of somebody's finishing move 3 times in one match. No matter who you are.
Well, you look at the DDT. When Jake Roberts hit the DDT, it was over. Nobody you could lay there for an hour. Yeah. Now there's multiple DDTs in matches.
I dare you to watch Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite and count the DDTs in one of those shows. You'll probably have 20 or 30 of them. Oh yeah. None of them were a finish.
No.
So. Well, I mean, unless you're going to use the paradigm shift for Moxley with the double underhook DDT, but still, like Tim said, different era, and that's like I said. I think that's what's wrong now is that they're more high spot artists now versus then because you're not going to see a match end with a sidewalk slam now.
No,
there's no way.
Absolutely not.
So,
all right, we have a tag team match for the tag team titles next. You had Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart with Deborah getting a victory over Dilo Brown and Mark Henry with Ivory. This match going about 9.5 minutes. To me, the match was okay. It's kind of weird for me watching an Owen Hart match now. This is right before, or just a couple months before he'll eventually have his tragic accident.
Yep.
So it's a little weird, just like watching the Chris Benoit match. Obviously, much different circumstances of how they passed away, but just kind of a little awkward for me watching these matches.
Yeah, I think that. And there was more goo goo and gaga on this match too, with the sexual chocolate Mark Henry and Ivory saying that she was going to rip Deborah's clothes off if she got involved, and just it could have been a really good match. I'm not saying it was bad, but like wrestling wise, it could have been a good match. I mean, Jeff Jarrett's probably withstood the test of time with how good he can still wrestle. I mean, he was still wrestling last year after he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And he looked good. He's one of the controversial names, too, in the WWE. Surprised that he came back after he supposedly held them up and all that stuff. But, Dilo, another underrated performer, and Owen Hart was probably one of the best technical wrestlers of all time. Mm-hmm. He's a Hart. I mean, it is what it is. And then even Mark Henry was still kind of green at that point, but he wasn't. He was getting better.
Yeah, he was getting better.
And being with Dilo doesn't hurt. So it could have been a good match, but it more or less amounted to Deborah getting her clothes ripped off by Ivory. That's really all it amounted to.
And again, something that doesn't age well today. You're not going to get away with that.
Well, like I said, Ivory, they've said it multiple times in the broadcast that Ivory said if Deborah gets involved, I'm ripping her clothes off. Mm-hmm. What is that? I mean, you could have just punched her. Like, I'm ripping her clothes off. Damn it! Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I did kind of like the finish though. I thought the finish kind of made sense where Owen Hart hit Mark Henry with the guitar in the knee, and then Jeff Jarrett gave the figure 4, and Mark Henry submitted.
Yes, yeah.
Mark Henry really sold that figure 4. By the way, he I mean, that was a definition of selling a finishing move. I mean, that Ric Flair, Buddy Rogers used that move. So I think Mark Henry did a good job selling.
And that's another thing going back in the day, like in the late '80s, mid '80s, when Flair was the guy. If you got in the figure 4, the match was over.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to them for kind of having a match. What we just talked about, having it be, different endings back then. At least that one, they kind of stayed true to what it would be. It was a finishing move. I mean, they had to get there with a guitar, so it made sense. And it like I said, it could have been a really good match. They didn't have all the Deborah and Ivory stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't bad.
All right, next match we have a singles match for the Intercontinental title. Billy Gunn's going to be your special guest referee in this one. You have Val Venus with Ryan Shamrock, Ken Shamrock's sister, getting the victory over Ken Shamrock in about just under 16 minutes.
I think this is when the pay-per-view really picks up. Mm-hmm. These last 4 matches for me were really good.
Yeah.
Really entertaining. Like I said, I'm not saying the beginning of the pay-per-view was bad, but I think these last 4 matches were really good.
Sure. Yeah, to me with this one, I thought the storytelling here was really good. I mean, you had a big feud leading up where Ryan Shamrock was going to date Val Venus, and Ken Shamrock obviously didn't like that. So Ken Shamrock obviously wanted to go after Val Venus. And Val would kind of, egg Ken Shamrock on by, doing some seductive videos and vignettes with his sister.
Stuff that wouldn't have aged well.
No, wouldn't have aged well.
Wouldn't be able to do today. There's the vignette of him talking to Ken Shamrock while in the shower with Ryan Shamrock.
Yeah.
You don't see that anymore because you shouldn't. I mean, it definitely was not very tasteful.
No.
But, I mean, it got the point across. Val Venus, ex-porn star, and again, air quotes, ex-porn star, that was his persona. Mm. And Ken Shamrock didn't want his sister dating an ex-porn star that was, that type of person.
Yeah.
And again, Ryan Shamrock is not Ken Shamrock's sister.
No. Billy Gunn involved in the storyline. Billy Gunn mooned
Ryan Shamrock.
Yeah. And then Ken Shamrock got pissed. I thought the finish was pretty good here. All throughout the match, Billy Gunn is giving slow counts or not paying attention.
Yeah, something in his eye, and they said at the beginning of the match that he got bribed by both sides. He got a large envelope with money in it, and then Ryan Shamrock said, I can take care of you if you take care of us, kind of thing. So you didn't really know which way it was going to go.
Yeah, but Ken Shamrock got into Billy Gunn's face, shoved him. Billy Gunn retaliated, and then did Val Venus rolled him up.
Yeah, roll a fast count. Yeah.
Fast count. So I thought the storytelling was good. The only thing with this match, it might have been just a tad bit too long.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah. Then at the end too, not to cut you off, but then at the end, Billy Gunn, storms out, and Ken Shamrock goes after him.
Yep.
And they end up getting into it, and then for some odd reason, Billy Gunn, comes back into the ring and hits Val, and then he just leaves. It was weird at the end.
It was a little bit weird at the end.
But yeah.
But overall, I thought the storytelling was pretty good in this one.
This match, like I said, to me started the better half of the pay-per-view, because there was 11 matches altogether. The first 3 were on weren't on the actual card. The first 4 were and this one, like I said, being the 5th match, kind of started the second half of the pay-per-view with really good matches and storytelling, I believe.
So the next match we have is kind of a unique tag team match. You had the Corporation, which was represented by China and Kane, defeating GGeneration X, which was represented by Triple H and X-Pac. This match went a little under 15 minutes. For what it was, I thought this match was pretty good. I thought China actually held her own, mixing it up, with the men. Obviously China was very skilled at what she could do. She was very skilled in the ring, but it's hard. It's hard to fight the men.
Yeah, well, and the storyline being that, China turned her back on DX and Triple H, and that Triple H took it personally, and that there was supposedly thought that DX was going to break up. There was tension, and then what actually happened was China turned on them. Yeah. So that brought X-Pac and DX back together to be reunited, to be stronger against the Corporation. And, the storyline was with Kane is that he was in the corporation because if he didn't, they would send him back to the insane asylum. Mm-hmm. So you have Kane being invested but not being invested. He's in there for a separate reason. So the story, again, was a really good story, but you could definitely tell that they made it personal because, Triple H and China used to date. Yeah. I don't know if at this point if they were still dating. There's a lot of rumors with Stephanie and Triple H when that actually started, if Triple H and China were broken up or not, and whatever. So, you could tell there was a personal thing going there, and it made it good. I mean, and not that X-Pac wasn't close too, because he ended up dating China, down the road. Yeah. So, I mean, they were all intertwined in the match. So the storytelling was on point.
I liked a young Shane McMahon on commentary here. It's pretty funny. Just bashing GGeneration X. Obviously, he was representing the corporation.
Yeah. X-Punk.
X-Punk. Yeah. He invented the Bronco Buster.
Yeah.
How they play up the Bronco Buster, some devastating move.
Yeah, and really all it is getting someone's balls bounced off your face. That's really all that is. Yeah. It's somebody in the corner getting straddled. It's not devastating by any means. It's almost like the stink face. It's more insulting than anything else. But
again, I think another definition of good storytelling here with this match.
Yeah, it definitely was better. When I saw what it was, it definitely was better than I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
I mean, there's good talent there, don't get me wrong, but I was wondering how they were going to integrate China into the match, and it turned out really well.
Yeah. All right, our next match was a last man standing match for the WWF title. Mankind and The Rock going at it. This match actually ended in a draw at 22 minutes. Both men could not answer the 10 count here. To me, I thought this was kind of creative because you would have thought this would have been a blow off to a feud. Leading up to it, they had the match at Royal Rumble 1999. They had halftime heat.
Yeah.
They're kind of swapping the title back and forth between the two here. So you would think maybe the last man standing match would be the blow off to this feud, but having it end in a draw makes it so this feud can continue.
Right, and Mankind going into the match as the champion. The corporation wants the belt back. The Rock's supposed to be the corporate champion. Yada yada yada. And you would think that that's like you said, they're building up to that, where they had the I Quit match where he didn't quit. Where Mick Foley, Mankind didn't quit. And then the halftime heat match, which was the empty arena match.
Yeah.
This era, this feud was done really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
This to me could have been the main event of any pay-per-view when these two went at it. No matter what it would be, the storytelling was good. They had really good chemistry in the ring. And yeah, it was interesting to see it end in a draw. You didn't think it was going to end that way based on the lead up they had, because whoever won this match was going to WrestleMania. So you just assume, well, the corporate champion should be going to WrestleMania. You would think they're going to get the belt off them somehow. And yeah, and then in a draw, double chair shot to the head.
Yep.
Kind of like a double clothesline. They both swung chairs at each other in the head and right in the center of the ring, end of the match.
Another thing that you probably won't see much of today. Well, maybe in AEW I could see it happening, but not in WWE.
Well, even after, again, sidebar here on this, even after Cody took that chair shot that was a gimmick chair that cut him open, when he got hit by Shawn Spears, he even said afterwards that, knowing what we know, that they might not be doing that anymore either. Yeah. It has a place if you do it right. Mm-hmm. You're not just going to go out and grab a steel chair and whack somebody in the head. We know the effects that has with CTE and, the Benoit tragedy. We know headshots and concussions and brain damage are real things. I mean, not even wrestling related, but, the brain of Junior Seau. He purposely killed himself by not shooting himself in the head so they could take a look at his brain. They found out some stuff in there that was really, and that was from playing football with a helmet. Mm-hmm. So, this day and age, I think it's really frowned upon. It's still a good visual if you're a fan, but to see it as a casual fan, you're like, oh, he shouldn't be hit him in the head with anything. So, yeah, they have to kind of tiptoe around that now. And you think about, like I said, at the Royal Rumble match, how many times did The Rock just blister Mankind in the head in that I Quit match?
Oh, yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah. So, it's a different era. But, yeah, double chair shot to the head. Hebner counts, 10 for both of them, and that's how the match ended. It was a good match. It was a lot of going into the match, they had Mankind was attacked warming up. He had a bum knee. They say he dislocated his knee. All this stuff. So they had a lot of storyline going in, so you thought they had it stacked against him pretty good. So
one thing I want to just take a note of, having examined Royal Rumble 1999 and this show, the WWE title kind of took a back seat to the McMahon-Austin feud. Those were your main events. You know, at the Royal Rumble, you had the I Quit match, but then you had the Royal Rumble match afterwards, where the storyline was McMahon Austin
1 and 2,
and then here you had Mankind Rock for the title, and then your main event though was McMahon Austin. But it kind of makes sense because McMahon Austin was like the hottest thing that the company had going for it at that time. Yeah. So it makes sense that they would do it. But it's interesting to note that the title almost wasn't the most important thing on the show at this point.
Well, and it's kind of how they do it now with Brock Lesnar carrying around the title. Like, you never see that guy show up because, you know, you forget there's a title. Mm-hmm. You forget there even is right now it's not the Universal title anymore, it's the WWE title. Yeah. They kind of flip-flop the titles. But for the longest time when he had the Universal title, you never saw him for weeks on end. They never even talked about it. Yeah. So, yeah, it's sometimes they know when to go with the hot thing, and that was definitely everybody wants to beat their boss up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, everybody gets upset at the man. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not talking about Becky Lynch, obviously, but everybody gets upset, and they want to have that dynamic of, you know what, I'm going to kick my boss's ass, and that's what that was about. That was Austin rebelling against the man, McMahon.
Well, let's get to it. Our main event was a steel cage match. This was to determine the number one contender for the WWF title at WrestleMania 15. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating Mr. McMahon by escaping the cage, and we'll get to how he escaped the cage in a second. Time on this match was about 8 minutes, but it's a little misleading because there was a ton of pre-match activity, including a wicked bump off the top of the cage through the announce table by Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, and we all know, we talked about this a while back about McMahon not being a trained wrestler, Shane being the better of the two, clearly, in the ring. And not that McMahon couldn't sell or couldn't do moves, but you worry about him taking a bump like that. Not only that, he's in his, late 50s at the time? Maybe even early 60s.
I think he's about 57, 58 here.
Yeah, so, he's 73 or 4 now. So, you figure he's probably mid-50s? Yeah. Ish. You shouldn't be falling off,
And I think, I could be wrong here, and I'm sure I'll probably get corrected, but I think... I think this was his first singles match. You had the Royal Rumble match, right, which I think was technically his first appearance in a ring, but as a one-on-one match, I think this was his first...
An actual match? I think you're right. I think you're right. You could be wrong, too, but memory serves me correctly. I'm with you on that, too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pre-match stuff. We finally... they're stretching him out. Stone Cold cuts a promo. Is the SOB still breathing? And they said yes, or whatever, and he comes back, takes the gurney, kind of throws it against the cage. Yeah. Brings him in the ring, and then we have our match.
McMahon flops around like a dead fish. Yeah. He brings him in the ring,
There was, this match was, I thought the storytelling was really cool in this match. There were several times where Stone Cold could have won it, but Mr. McMahon egged him on by flipping him the bird. Yeah. So Stone Cold obviously came back in the ring for more punishment.
Yeah, I remember, because I actually watched this with my wife, and I remember pointing out to her, it's funny to watch Vince McMahon flip somebody off because he doesn't do it right. Yeah, he has his thumb out. It just looks so funny. It's just it's funny to see him do it. You see Austin put his hands up, and the only thing he has are his fingers. Yeah, McMahon's looking at him. He's doing his thing, and he's got his thumb out, and he's all one eye open, and so the storytelling was good because you could tell that that's what they were trying to get to. So then there was another point in the match, like Tim said. So the first time he was going to go out the door, he flipped him off. Then he double birds him after he's been busted open. Mm-hmm. And Austin was already on the other side of the cage. He climbs back in, and it goes some more.
So we'll get to the finish here. We have a debuting Paul White, who would later become the Big Show, or him as the Big Show now. Yeah. He kind of comes up under the ring. Mr. McMahon, in siding with Mr. McMahon orders him to throw Austin onto the cage, which he does, but it kind of backfires because the cage gave way and Austin escapes.
Yeah, he ends up swinging as the cage swings open, and he ends up dropping on the floor, and technically he wins the match.
I thought this finish was awesome because it accomplished a lot of things. You debut a giant in Paul White.
And the Giant, really, because at the time he was in WCW as a giant. He was a hot commodity. He was a big free agent signing for the WWF at the time. But
it also you get a little bit of the swerve factor because you think with the debut and him siding with Mr. McMahon, you're like, oh, well, Mr. McMahon's going to win now. Yep. They're going to screw Austin. Yep. But they don't. They actually give Austin the win. Right. So usually when you make a debut like that, whoever they side with is going to get the win. But they kind of went against the norm by giving Austin the win. So I really thought the finish here was really, really creative, and accomplished everything it needed to.
No, the creative was great for that. They almost ruined it. if you watch the camera angle after Austin gives the stunner and he's in McMahon's face, like I said, I watched this with my wife, and I actually paused it and rewind it to dissect it. I go, watch the ring. You can see, as they pan around the ring, you can see the apron lift, and then you see a little bit of a knife come through the ring, and they pan up real quick. They almost spoiled it. They almost gave it away of him coming up, so they actually panned up and then went to the other camera where you couldn't see behind Austin. Mm-hmm. So they caught it. They almost ruined the surprise for everybody. I invite you to, if you watch this match, to at the end watch it, because you can see that one camera angle, you see the ring lifting, and then you see the knife come through, and they're like, oh, crap. And they pan up because they didn't want to ruin it for everybody.
So that is St. Valentine's Day Massacre there. To rate the show, I thought there was a lot of creative finishes and a lot of storytelling, especially like Roland said, the last 4 matches of the show, I really think kind of solidified this as a good show. I'm going to give this one a pretty high rating. I'm going to give this about an 8.
Yeah, I was going to say 7.5 for me. It only because the first part of the card wasn't that great. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it could have been better. And I personally think that the last 2 matches in general, the Rock Mankind and Austin McMahon matches, made that show this good.
Yeah.
And again, I know the last 4 matches were really good, but those last 2 made the show worth talking about today, I think, in my opinion.
Definitely recommend go back and watching it. Yeah, at least the last 4.
Yeah.
Definitely the last 2. I would go back, at least watch the last 4.
Yeah, and if you want to watch the whole thing, that's cool, because, I mean, even those other matches aren't very long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can get through it if you wanted to watch the whole thing. But, yeah, if you start with the Val Venus, Ken Shamrock match and go from there, you can't lose. It's probably going to cost you hour and 20 minutes, and it's totally worth it. I think.
Absolutely. No, definitely an underrated show, but definitely worth watching. So coming up next week, we are going to talk about No Way Out 2000. Next week is a little bit before the 20th anniversary of that show.
Yeah, it originally aired on the 27th. So next week will be the 22nd. So we're within 5 days of the 20th anniversary of what would be the first No Way Out pay-per-view. Now, in 98, they had the No Way Out of Texas, which technically is No Way Out, but it wasn't just No Way Out. So it technically not only is the 20th anniversary, but it is the first No Way Out pay-per-view. Features
the Hell in the Cell match between Cactus Jack and Triple H, which would be a career match. In that match, so we'll get into that. Looking forward to it. Again, the 20th anniversary of that show.
Yeah, we decided that we're gonna go. We don't want to have the same format every week. So if there's something of note that we can cover in our half-hour format that is past, we have no problem bringing it to you. And even today, we also covered some stuff they're doing in the present that kind of bugged us one way or the other. So we like to keep you guys kind of guessing.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you listening, and we hope you tune in next week. And until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Bulis.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present.